What is the vertex?
The highest or lowest point.
Exactly.
I can get it right now, though.
The highest.
I can get it right now.
So following along, the highest. Ladies, following along, the highest or lowest point. Another way to identify the vertex, really quick, the maximum or minimum. If you do not have a highlighter, please get one and highlight all of these new vocab words. Guys, quietly. If you need me to repeat what I wrote, just let me know, because I know it's a little bit messy. Julio. Okay, well, make sure your packet's opened up to the first page. The highest or lowest point, maximum or minimum. Axis of symmetry. What does symmetrical mean? When you do what to it? When you split something in half, those two parts are going to be the same. So the axis of symmetry, another way to say that is AOS, we can abbreviate it, is the vertical, guys, please stop talking. Yes, the vertical line that splits the parabola equally in half. If you need me to repeat it, just let me know. Julio, come on, follow along. Write these definitions in your book. I also want you to write x equals xv. xv is the x value of the vertex. Sorry, this thing's a little bit, it's not connecting. Okay, so the vertical line that splits the parabola equally in half. X equals xv. xv is the x value of the vertex. This is all for axis of symmetry. Okay, so really quick, looking at this graph, where is my vertex? You kind of like tell me in words where I'm going to draw my point for my vertex. Right here? So the vertex has to be on the graph. So your vertex is going to be right here. So right next to that, vertex. What are these called? They are the points where the graph goes through the x-axis. X what? X intercepts, exactly. So these 2 points, right next to them, x intercepts. Okay, so based on our definitions, what is this called? The axis of symmetry. Just say axis of symmetry. Keep it consistent. What is this little point right here? The y-intercept. Where the graph touches or goes through the x-axis, y-axis, is your y-intercept. Okay, so standard form. This should look familiar to you. This is what we worked with the first half of Unit 6. To find the vertex, substitute in B and A. into the formula. Our formula is x equals negative b over 2a. So write this formula in. It's very important. X equals negative b over 2a. Write these definitions in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, once you have solved for xv, substitute the number in for x and solve for y. So once you use this formula to get x, get that number for x, put it into the equation, and you'll get y. And then you'll have x comma y for your vertex. And this will make a little bit more sense when we start doing examples next time. Okay, so now, how to find the vertex given vertex form. Your vertex is always going to be h comma k, where h is your x value and k is your y value. So to find the vertex, identify the h and k values and write this little note. Remember the minus sign is part of the formula. It's not h. So what that means is if h is 4, so let's say we put 4 in for h. H would be 4. It wouldn't be negative 4. So if you have x minus 4, your h is 4, not negative 4. Does that make sense? Yeah. If you had h is negative 4, how would you write inside this parentheses? What would you write? Minus a negative 4 or plus 4. Is that clear? Yeah. If h is negative, this will become a plus. Okay, so effects of C. Of A, I'm sorry. It's not H. That's what that says. If you don't know what I said, just shout out that you don't know what I said, and I'll re-say it. When you have a positive A, so just plus A, the parabola will open what? Up. If you have a negative A, what will happen? Open down. If A equals 1 or A equals negative 1, the parabola has a normal width. So highlight normal width. If A equals 1 or A equals negative 1. So that means that the parabola is not going to open any wider or narrower than it normally would. Okay? If A is greater than 1, the parabola will be more narrow. So, some examples. 2 is greater than 1. 3 is greater than 1. 6 is greater than 1. Negative 8 is also an example. Negative 13 is also an example. When you're looking at if A is greater than 1, it completely ignore the sign. So even if they give a negative 10, you only look at it as 10. Does that make sense? You only look at those negative numbers as a positive number. So if they give you negative 8, just think of it as 8. 8 is greater than 1. If A is less than 1, the parabola will be more, what do you think? Wide. Again, ignore the sign. So 1/2 is an example. Negative 2/3 is an example. We don't care that it's negative. We only look at that number to determine if it's less than or greater than 1. Negative 1/4. 2/5. So under that, or to the side, just so that you remember, for these two bullets, ignore the sign of A. So if it's negative, it doesn't matter. Look at it as a positive number. Okay? Shifts. The vertex causes, guys, sit up, please, when you take notes. You just sit up. The vertex causes the parent function to shift. Have you guys ever heard of a parent function before?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you know what it means?
I have a different definition for it.
Okay, what would you say a parent function is? What's your idea? Okay. So what word do you see in parent function that's familiar?
Function.
Parent. What is a parent? A parent is where you come from. So a parent function is where all these other functions that we can make come from. So above parent function, I want you to write simplest function. Simplest function. XV will shift the function left or right. YV will shift it what? Exactly. Up or down. Also, I'm just going to give you a little example. So if you have a vertex of -2, 5, what types of shifts are you doing? If we said XV will shift left or right and XV is -2, what are we doing? We will go left 2. And what about this 5? What will our movement be? Up 5. Because it's positive, it will go up. Domain, no restrictions. Another way to write this, or how you will write it when you're asked to identify the domain of a parabola, negative infinity, comma, infinity. That's always the domain for quadratic functions. Range, the vertex restricts the range. When A is positive, your range will be in this form. Y value of the vertex, comma, infinity. And your graph will go up with your vertex being xv, comma, yv. When you have a negative A, when you have a negative A, your range will be negative infinity, comma, y value of the vertex. And your graph will go down because our A is negative. Our vertex is still going to be xv, comma, yv. Again, if you didn't, make sure you highlight all these terms because they're our key vocabulary. Okay. X. Do you want me to scroll up? Okay. Is everybody up to date? Ish? What? All right, I'm going to move on. I'm not going to scroll down, so if you need to keep writing, keep writing. X-intercepts, there can be 0, 1, or 2. X-intercepts. So I'm going to draw 3 graphs. I'll scroll back up. When you have a parabola that has 0 x-intercepts, an example of that, something like this, or something like this. Why is that true? Yes? Right. It's not touching the x-axis at all. Therefore, there are no intercepts, x-intercepts. So right next to it, write 0 x-intercepts. That's an example of a graph. Okay, so what about when there's 1 x-intercept? How many times is it going to pass through the x-axis? Once. So an example of that or it hits the x-axis once. So there is 1 x-intercept. Now, when there's 2 x-intercepts, it's going to pass the x-axis twice. So an example of that, something like this. Draw those pictures because it'll help a lot. And you guys are given actual equations. Y-intercept. In standard form, the C value is the y-intercept. What is standard form? ax squared plus b, exactly. So just that c value, when it's given in standard form, is going to be your y-intercept. So maybe you can underline c value is the y-intercept so you don't forget. In vertex form, you find the y-intercept by substituting in 0 for x and solving for y. And in parentheses, you can say you're evaluating f of 0. That's another way to say what we just said. Once you're finished writing in the notes, come up, take a piece of paper, write something you learned today or a question you still have. When you're done doing that, hand it in right up here. For homework, you're making flashcards with all of the vocabulary that we gave today. So paper and markers. Start making your flashcards. Do that after that you wrote in something you learned or a question you still have.